along that way too. So your psyche, from last time, your psyche, your little thoughts, behavior, it's your whole personality. It's all of you. That includes this top part that we talked about last time, your consciousness. That's the things that you're aware of. That's your field of view. So your field of awareness. The things that you're conscious of. These are the things that you look around the room and you're conscious of the lights around you. You're conscious of certain memories that you have. If any of you guys went to you went shopping last week, you went to the mall, you have you're conscious of that memory. And then you've got the personal unconscious, which are the things that happen below the threshold or in the subliminal part of your mind. These are the things that your ego, which remember the ego is that like kind of gatekeeper that regulates what goes into the consciousness and what goes into the unconscious. So the things that your ego rejects and sends into the personal unconscious, those are the things that you're not aware of, but still influence your life. Goes back to what we were saying earlier about your early childhood memories. Well, sorry, your early childhood experiences. Sorry. Those things that happened to you, especially before the age of 5, that you kind of got programmed with. Those are existing in your personal unconscious. Now, and that's where your personality forms, especially your sub-personalities. Now the really deep part is the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious. Those are the things like your ancestral memories. Things like your shadow, which we're going to talk a bit about today. The archetypes, which we'll talk about. The anima, the animus, the synchronicity. All of those concepts that we saw in the things I told you you'd have to know by the time we get done with this. All that important stuff happens down below. The anima, here I define it for you. It's the inner feminine side, specifically for men. So if dudes, you're in touch with your feelings, then that's your anima that you're accessing. The animus is the inner masculine side of women. So if women have like this, it's either like traditionally masculine, if you got those elements of yourself, you're tomboyish, then that's your animus. And then you've got this thing I was talking about, synchronicity, which are the things that seem like they're meaningfully connected, but they're not. That's like when you're thinking about your friend, and all of a sudden they text you, and you're like, oh, whoa, that's so weird that you messaged me. Those things tend to stand out to us. If think about how many times you've thought about your friends and they did not text you. Hundreds of times, if not thousands of times. But then the one time that they do, we go, whoa, that means something. That's so important. So, the ancestral memories we talked about last time. And we're going to talk about the shadow and the archetypes particularly today. If I remember this PowerPoint properly. Alright, so just to kind of sum everything up, your consciousness are the ideas that you're aware of, the things that you're thinking about. These are things that you know about. Like you're aware that you're thirsty. Because you know that, you go get a cup of water. Or, in my case, it may take you a week and a day to go get a cup of water. Your personal unconscious are the things that you're not conscious of, but you could be. In other words, they could be dragged from your unconscious into your consciousness, and that's what you really want to happen. For example, if you want to discover who you really are, that's the work you've got to do. If you're trying to figure out why you are the way that you are, why you do the things that you do, that's how you do it. You dig into that personal unconscious and you make the unconscious conscious. You kind of dig back into your memories. Yes, sir? And then finally, think of the collective unconscious as your ancestral memories. I describe it here succinctly as the universal psychic structures. If you can process that, good on you. But in other words, it's the structures of the psychic universe. I don't mean psychic, like you can use crystal balls and shit like that. I'm saying like it's the psychology of it. We'll leave it at that. Questions about this? All right. So the things that you're aware of that influence your behavior, the things that you're not aware of that influence your behavior, and then the really, really deep things here that influence your behavior that you're not aware of. All right, so we've got this duality of mankind, duality of humans. There are two parts of you. You've got this persona, which is a social face that you show the world. These are the things that we present about ourselves when in front of our friends, let's say. So you show up and like I ask you, how you doing? And you're like, fine. You're not fine. There's something going on. Or like when you're miserable but you pretend to be happy. Or whatever it is that you try to convince the world that you are. Now, a lot of people will say this, like, I don't try to convince the world about anything. Bullshit. If we examined you, we would find out that that's not true. It's not that it's nefarious. It's not that you're consciously like trying to hide who you are. But we recognize that if you really were entirely yourself, what we fear anyway, that people would not accept you. Think about those thoughts that you have that you would never share with somebody because you just don't want to be judged by it, or you have to find a certain group of people. And that's true about just about everybody. There are things that you'll share with your friends that you'd never share with your family. There are things that you'd share with your family that you'd never share with your friends. That's why we have these kind of like hierarchies of relationships in our life. So persona, the word itself in Greek means mask. So it's the mask that we're wearing. Sometimes it's not straight. Sometimes it's a little bit crooked. We recognize that something is a little bit off. And we talked about that last time. Yeah. That's from last class. That's from last class. After that, we have the shadow. And the shadow is the unconscious aspects of our personality. And these are the things that they don't have. We use the word shadow, so it sounds like it's negative. Like this is where you desire to like murder people. No, it's not it at all. These can be your anxieties. These can be your fears. The things that you don't want to show off to the world. And a lot of times, these are the things that we aren't even conscious of because we just don't want to have to deal with it. So your life is kind of playing out this way, where you've got this persona that you're showing the world, and then you've got this shadow thing underneath. And the shadow is always kind of bubbling up. It's always kind of bubbling up. And that's that contact point, I guess, between your persona and your shadow. That's where your anxieties come from. That's where your mental health problems come from. That's where your depression comes from. Because there's this part of you that you don't want to accept, and there's this part of you that you're showing the world. And again, one of the dangers of being a liar is that eventually you get found out. Even if you think like, I'm really good at it. I'm fine. Let's just say I believe you. You have to get away with it every single time, though. You've only got to get caught once. And it doesn't even have to be your fault that you get caught. Somebody could be just, something could just go wrong, I guess. But someone could just find you out, and now your whole reputation is destroyed that way. And so there's an anxiety, if you're an intelligent person, there's an anxiety that's going along with that, where you're thinking like, I do not want to get found out here. I do not want people to find out about me here. What if they find out I'm a liar? What if they find out that I told everyone I ran that marathon? What if they find out that I never did? Or maybe you think you got away with it and you push it down into the shadow, but there's always that anxiety there. What if my mom does look underneath my mattress and finds that thing I'm hiding, or whatever it is? There's always that thing in the back of our minds. So the shadow and the persona are always kind of like in this battle of the persona kind of suppressing the shadow, and then the shadow kind of lingering. Now what's going to happen eventually is that, boom, that shadow is going to blow through. And that's when we start saying things like, oh my God, I'm not that person. I think an example I've used before was, if you're ever arguing with someone and you get so mad that you punch a wall, but you're typically a pretty laid back, kind of chill person, but something happens, man, where you just kind of go off and you punch the wall. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. That's not me. It is you. It is you. That's your shadow. And that's the shadow going and poking up. And then you might be like, oh, I would never do that again. Yes, you will. Yes, you will. You'll do it because that's who you are under those circumstances, under those conditions, with all of that going on. Otherwise, you wouldn't have done it. Can you get lemons from an apple tree?
No.
Why not? I understand that, yeah. So lemon tree, is there lemonness inside of apples?
Maybe.
I'm not trying to trick you.
Besides,
Then no. Then we're just like, no, Skillen. Is there? And I go, I'm not trying to trick you. No, there's no. Yeah, there's no lemonness inside of apples. I mean, wouldn't it shock you if you went out to your apple tree and you pulled a lemon off, and then the tree's like, oh my God, that's not who I am. No, you only get apples from an apple tree. You only get lemons from a lemon tree. They never come. If something comes out of you like that, that's because it was in you. It is you. That's just the hard part for us to accept, because we're suppressing that shadow side because we don't want to be known this way. We don't like the idea that that's who we are. If any of you guys have ever seen the movie Full Metal Jacket?
Oh my God, yes.
Maybe you've seen this movie before. Yeah, there's a great scene. If you know, I don't know if this is going to play because I don't think I have my speaker turned on. But if you know this scene, let me see if it plays. No, it does not play. I'll narrate it for you, but in short, it's a movie about soldiers in Vietnam. I'll leave it there. And this guy, they call him Private Joker. That's his nickname. And over here is the colonel, and he comes, and they're covering a massacre of civilians who were murdered, and then their bodies were dumped in this grave. So he's the guy who's telling him about what happened, and he's like all happy about, because he's a reporter. So he's like, wow, I'm gonna be famous. So he's all happy as he's talking about this massacre and how they killed them. And then he's taking pictures of them over here, and this guy's gonna go report on it. And the colonel comes over, and he notices that this guy, Private Joker, on his helmet, it's written "Born to Kill." And then on his lapel right here, he's wearing a peace button. So he comes over, and he's just giving him brief over it. And he's like, is that some kind of a sick joke? And he's like, sir, no, sir. So then, why'd you do it? I don't know, sir. He's like, you don't know very much, do you? No, sir. And so he's giving him a bunch of shit, and he finally goes, so why'd you do it? He's like, I don't know, sir. He's like, well, you better figure it out, otherwise I'm going to court-martial you. So he says, I guess I was making a statement about the duality of man, sir. You know, the Jungian thing. Peace button, persona, born to kill, shadow. And the colonel has no idea what he's talking about, so he just stares at him. Whose side are you on, son? So if you're familiar with the movie and you go back and watch that now, you'll understand the whole thing about the duality of man.
Oh.
Right, so the duality is exactly that. The duality is that you've got this shadow and this persona that are always fighting it out. Which of those two things are you? Yes. Yes. Now, what do you do about that, by the way? I'll tell you. We'll get there.
Are we born?
Yeah, what you do is you do a process called individuation. The process is called individuation. Individuation. Yeah, exactly. There's your tip-off that you should write that thing down. I said it 3 times. I didn't just repeat it. I said it 3 times. The process of individuation is when you take the shadow and the persona and you kind of marry them together. In other words, you dig into your shadow. You find out who you really are, and then you accept yourself as you are. That doesn't mean you just sit there and go, yep, I guess I'm just a violent person. What you do is you say, oh crap, I am a violent person. Part 2, I don't want to be a violent person. So now I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to change and not be a violent person. That's that process of individuation. Sorry, that change can only happen through the process of individuation. When you bring those two things together, you accept what you are, and once you accept what you are, now you can fix it. It's like if I asked you, how do you get home from here? And you're like, I have no idea, where's here? I just dropped in the middle of nowhere. First you have to know where you are, then you have to know where you're going. So once I give you a map, now you can accept where you are. Oh shoot, I'm in the middle of Nevada. That's right. Now I know how to get back to National City. There you go. But first things first, you have to accept who you are, and then you can go through it. Now, we see this play out, by the way, in a lot of comic books and movies. Think about a character. I guess there's, so you have one, I'm trying to think, my favorite superhero, because he's one of the only real superheroes. And of course, who's the best superhero?
Spider-Man.
You guys are all wrong. Who is it? You guys better get it right or else everyone fails. Who's the best superhero?
Goku.
Nope, no one said it yet. Who is it?
Naruto.
No, that's Spider-Man. Spider-Man's weak.
Scanlan?
Yeah, who said it? Batman. He's the only real superhero.
Oh, yeah!
Now, people will look at him and be like,
Nightwing.
his superpower is he's rich. Shut up.
Nightwing.
Yeah, no, Nightwing's a punk also. But Batman, he's the only real because he's really smart. And by the way, the fact that he's rich makes him even more of a superhero. Because what could he do with his wealth? He could go live the life of comfort. He could just go chill and be like, forget it, man, I'm just going to go buy an island and hang out. But he doesn't. He chooses a life of suffering. Just like the herd we were saying earlier chooses the life of comfort, the individual chooses the life of confronting suffering, confronting life exactly as it is. Batman does that. What's that?
He can counter all the heroes.
You can what?
He can counter all the heroes.
Counter all of what?
Justice League, yeah. He has ways to kill the Justice League. He has multiple plans to kill
Yeah, he's got plans to kill the Justice League if necessary. This guy could do it, but he doesn't choose comfort. He chooses to face suffering and attack it. Now, Batman, he's got these two sides. He's got the persona he shows the world, Bruce Wayne, and he's got the shadow part of himself. But even that shadow part of himself, he's individuated. You put them both together, and he has a value system, which is he doesn't kill anybody. I like seeing stuff like that, where he'll grab someone, like fracture their face like in 9 places, break both arms, yeah, exactly, dislocate their knees, and then sever their back and be like, but I don't kill anybody. I just make them wish they were dead, which is almost worse. Now, there's a villain who is no persona.
Joker?
Yeah, he's all shadow. Exactly.
Okay.
That's a person who is all bubbled over, and he's no persona. He's just all shadow. All of the deepest, worst, darkest desires. That's what Joker is. And so Batman, he's. Now the question for Batman, by the way, is which of those two things is the persona? Is Bruce Wayne the persona, or is Batman the persona? Which of those is his shadow? Is Bruce Wayne the shadow, or is Batman the shadow? Because remember, Bruce Wayne, he's not admirable, really, right? He has a bad reputation, and that's because he gives off a fake reputation of being someone who's just a billionaire playboy, doesn't care about things, who just lives a life of indulgence and luxury. But in actuality, he's a person who lives a very different life as that. The question becomes, which of those two things is he? Now, there is a superhero, like I know you all know, literally I think you all know this person, who, but I'm not sure if you saw the movie though, who has this distinction between the shadow and the persona. And in the last movie of all of it, the persona and the shadow are individuated, and this person walks around as both.
Venom? Mobius?
Hulk. Yeah, Hulk. When he hulks out, he's just, and then you gotta tell him his sun's getting low, and all of a sudden Bruce Banner comes back, and Bruce Banner is the persona, Hulk is the shadow, and the shadow constantly overcomes the persona because he's not strong enough to suppress his shadow, or he's not strong enough, to individuate, to accept his shadow. So instead, he just, it becomes. Now, in the last movie, he's walking around as Bruce Banner, but in the body of Hulk. He's now both. He's individuated. He's become both of those two things. So this is the process that you want to become. And is he more powerful as that? Oh yeah, because now he's able to unleash the Hulk when he needs to, but be Banner in the meantime. He struggles with it. You remember those of you who've seen the movie? Remember he's on top of the rooftop. He's supposed to be destroying stuff, and he's like, I just feel silly doing this.
He destroys the car.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
He has multiple shadows too.
Questions?